A lot of people who falls for the propaganda of Hamas, of lefty side, whatever, is because most of people don't know how a third world country looks like or how does it operates, and they think like when somebody says in the news that, oh, according to Hamas health ministry, 30 or 40,000 civilians in Gaza died, and everyone takes it as if it was a true number. Everyone treats it like in Gaza there are 2 million people, which is a false. There are some like studies that there are barely 800, not eight, yeah, 800,000 people. So I believe it's because nobody really understand what the hell is Hamas ministry, Gaza health ministry, or and other stuff like this. So just I don't know. Do I get like can such a point be a real thing?
What can be, well, let me actually step back a little bit regarding the way I think people with more of a leftist mindset look at this, and also people with a extreme right leaning mindset, they also, the way they look at this and why they're both wrong, and what is the correct way to look at it, in my opinion. Okay, so from people who are on the extreme left, okay, the way they look at the world is that if you're weak, if you're poor, then you're on the right side of history. You're the good people. If you have less abilities, you are on the right side. And the people who are empowered, the people who are rich, the people who have more abilities, the people who have more means, they're on the wrong side. They're the evil ones, right? So whenever they want to look at conflict, they look at if you're powerful, if you also have the same gender or skin color of the people who are usually on average more powerful, then you would be part of the bad people, right? So it's easy if you look at Israel and Gaza, the Gazan people look poor. They look like they're less able. The Israelis are richer, more powerful, bigger military, easy peasy. Israelis are bad. The people in Gaza are good, right? The extreme other way of looking at this, where some people on the extreme right have, is that the might makes right philosophy. That if you're powerful, if you're strong, if you're rich, then you must be the right side. This is why sometimes when, yeah, actually, I'm not going to give that example, but so if you the more prosperous you are, the bigger, especially the military, they're obsessed with military. The bigger your military is, then that necessarily means that you are the good people, right? And I think the way I look at it is the classical liberal way of looking at it, is might doesn't make you right, but being right gives you might, right? So I think it works the other way around. So having the correct views, having the correct values, having the right methods over time makes you richer, makes you more stable, makes you more powerful, right? And then the point of using that power is to protect weaker people, to protect the weaker people, right? So you use might, you use the power, you use the prosperity to protect the people who need to be protected. Um, and I can't believe Samantha is thumbs downing that. You saying you use power to protect weaker people, and you're thumbs downing that as well. Like what? Like you're
No,
thumbs downing
I'm
everything I
thumbs
say all the time.
downing you saying that being on the right side of things will inherently make you powerful. I don't think
Never
that's
said
true.
inherently. Never said inherently.
Okay, you
On
didn't use the word
average.
inherently, but you said that, like, you think that
So
be having the correct
you put words
values.
in my mouth. Then you put words in my mouth. I'm
I'm
talking about average.
uh,
Yeah, but I never did I say inherently. I'm talking about averages. Of course, this is not always going to be the case. Of course, it's not always going to be the case, right? But to me, it's obvious that better methods, like if your methods are not producing on average better results, then how is it even better? Right? Because as a consequentialist, as a rule utilitarian, I define the right method. I define the right methods based on the methods that on average produces better results.
Okay, let's go to Blake first.
So, just to really quickly respond to this, there is this concept that permeates a lot of progressive witness and even academia called standpoint epistemology. I don't know if you've heard of this. The idea is that those who are in the position that they consider oppressed inherently know more about the world and are more accurate in their description of it, and therefore we should trust whatever they say without criticism. I'm way oversimplifying that here, but like that's kind of how it ends up working in practice. So I think that might be part of why people look at that propaganda and, you know, they think, oh, it must be true because of the source.
Okay, Sketch.
I think AI is changing this a little bit because it's giving you like a third eye into this, right? Because right now you see a lot of AI propaganda and you start, wait, is this true? You start, Grok, is this true? ChatGPT, is this true? So when you start seeing a video about what's going on around in Gaza, you can ask it, right? Or some people ask it. You'll find it on the thread. Someone, hey, look at this video. Look, this is being produced. You see, these are actors. They're taking the same half bread, giving it to everybody else. You see this? This is AI. So you're having more of a debate in the comments that goes beyond the philosophical grand narratives that have permeated the scheme and turned it more into a, like a battle within the comments beyond the larger architecture. Then it gets into who's being genuine or disingenuous. Are you like changing the subject, deflecting? So that's what's going more. If you want to go into the practical sense of the propaganda, I would also say don't be disheartened, because as time goes by, more and more people are starting to parse this out. And at a certain point, you got to choose: am I going to lie to myself, or am I going to see what is as is? So I wouldn't, I understand that it's frustrating to see all this propaganda, and I know Armin knows a lot about AI, but I'd like your take on this. Is AI helping in this in some way?
Okay, so I think AI is going to help certain people figure out the facts easier. It also might do the opposite to some people. It also, because people are going to make their own personal AIs that is going to feed them the information that they like to see. It's going to be easier for the people who know how to find good information to get better information, but it's also going to be easier for people who want to create misinformation to amplify the creation of misinformation. But what AI would not be able to do for a very long time is create value systems. I mean, uh, to have no, it can create value system. It cannot itself have a value system for a very, very long time, until we reverse engineer the brain and make AI that actually works like the human brain. The thing is that even if everybody had the facts, the absolute correct facts, let's imagine that all the people in the world had like the facts, like there was no disagreement regarding what objective reality is and what the facts are. They will still have different judgments about it because they have different value systems, and AI itself will not be able to give you determine the correct value system because it doesn't have a value of its own, a value system of its own.
Okay, Mantha.
So Samantha, maybe we disagree because the way I define good and bad, right? So I'm a rule utilitarian, right? So for me, something that is good if it produces good results, meaning that it increases well-being for the highest number of people or reduces misery. It basically it's a well-being measure, right? So I don't see things as inherently good or bad, like a virtue ethicist or a deontologist. Okay, I see things good or bad depending on the consequences, the effect they have on society, right? So when I say that right values make you more prosperous and makes you more powerful, because if they didn't, I wouldn't call them the right values. So for me, it's definitionally true. Do you see how the definitions I'm working with here?
Mhm.
All right. So if somebody disagrees with me, is because their definition of good or bad is different. They see actions as inherently good or bad regardless of the consequences. So if you do certain things and it produces bad results, you still might call it a good thing because you think this action is inherently good, regardless of the consequences. So maybe me and you are dealing with different moral, but different ethical philosophies, and that's why there's a contradiction in the way that we look at things, right? So do you think things are good or bad inherently, or do you think things are good or bad based on their consequences? Samantha?
I
No.
think things are good or bad, like inherently.
There you go. There you go. So we weren't disagreeing. We were just working with different definitions. We weren't disagreeing. We were just talking past each other because we're working based on completely different definitions of good or bad. But do you understand from my perspective why what I said it made sense? Because if it produces good results, then it's the right thing to do.
I feel like it depends if how you define good, because it's like,
Exactly.
I mean, if I were to turn myself into like a token Jew who like went on rants about how evil Israel is and validated everything the anti-Zionists want me to validate, I could gain a lot of fucking popularity. So I could get like, a lot of good, positive, powerful results, and I would get more power that way. But like, I'm not going
Oh,
to say that's a good thing because
so Samantha, you
that's
misunderstood what I'm saying. I'm saying highest well-being for the highest number of people, not for you individually as a person. So that might benefit you, but it hurts society. So I'm not talking about my own personal interest, my own personal power or wealth. I'm talking about I call something good where it impacts the positive impact is on the highest number of people. If it helps you and hurts other people, and if that harm is higher than the good, then it's a bad thing. So even if you gain something from it, you're hurting other people by doing that. So based on my moral philosophy, that would be a bad thing, even if it's benefiting you. The net effect is negative. We could one day discuss this at another time once this whole military operations are over. There's like multiple different moral philosophies. We have rule utilitarianism, we have act utilitarianism, we have deontology, we have virtue ethicist, we have divine command theory, and we could compare them. There's a couple of more, and we could compare them and see which one we think is the best one. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's move
Uh,
on to this person.
Yep, Jeffrey wants to respond next.
Yeah, just to maybe put give a framework so that you guys are working from different frameworks. If I think what Armin's saying is using Maslow's hierarchy of needs, consequentialists look particularly at the bottom tiers because those are things you can physically measure. And they're saying that what is good is one that maximizes the marginal social or public good, read efficient and or optimal. And when he mentioned decent, having the right thoughts or good thoughts, say morality, one could use Judeo-Christian and Christianity as a framework for that, like don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. The reason that helps maximize the marginal social or public good is because it reduces transaction costs. And also because of some of its restraint in the perverse indulgence of short-term benefits, it allows you then to maximize something called intertempora utility. Meaning if I invest in, I can have like $100 today. I can either invest it in, say, learning a skill that will allow me to earn lots of money down the road, or I can spend $100 on smoking crack. So if I smoke crack, I have much more immediate consumption, perversely defined as it is. It comes at the cost of investment in productivity. Now you can't sustain consumption down the road. As far as like good as it's defined at an individual level, that might be like the highest tier of Maslow's hierarchy of need, which is self-actualization or how you view the world. That's very much subjectively defined for each person. So I don't think you guys were you were just kind of you were talking past each other because it seems like you were approaching that same issue from different ideological frameworks. And that's, I mean, you weren't fighting. Anyway, that's my read on it anyway.
Okay, thank you for that. Lila is next.
When Armin is talking about that the best result win, it's because he's talking about actions, not about ideas. Also could be applied on ideas, obviously, and values, but I mean, when it's in action, it's pretty easy to see. If you have a goal, you can do a few actions to reach there. Some will never reach there, some will reach there faster. That's why it's the best, or we'll do it in the best outcome for more sides. For example, now Trump has a win-win-win situations that we never had before, right? So, I mean, I think maybe it will clarify. And I wanted to respond from before. We were talking about propaganda, and it's not really propaganda, we should do quote, but there is a, now I forgot the words. It's like, I feel like you said, oh, now there is AI, so we can, to find better answer. These people don't want to find the right answer. They want to get validated for what they already think, and they will forever be stuck in this route. I mean, because no matter what will happen, they will find a way that this will validate what they think from before. And I think it hits the ground. There is something about the new far woke, whatever you want to call these people, they have some glorification or victimization. And somehow to be a victim, to be disabled, to be unsuccessful is kind of something positive, something that gives you, gains you some stuff, some perks in life. So I think once both of these things meet, it became even more dangerous and even more big than what it was before these two things meet.
Okay, so Peter is next.
So, if having good values causes societies to become powerful, what about the Muslims in the 7th century? They had very bad values, but defeated the Iranians and Byzantines, who both had better.
Well,
It's multifactorial. Power is multifactorial. This is going to have a positive effect on it, right? But the reason why Arabs, first of all, the Arabs who invaded the Persian Sassanid Empire and the Roman Byzantine Empire, they weren't even Muslim. Okay, they became Muslim later. So this is like they rewrote history after as if they were Muslim to begin with, right? Also, when it comes to the values at that time, so first of all, you have to look at why were they successful is because the Persian Empire, the Sassanids and the Byzantines were fighting for so many years, and that had depleted their power. Both of them were impacted by plague. And the Arabs coming out of, they weren't involved, they weren't in big cities, so they weren't impacted by plague. And yet the big cities of the Persian and the Roman empires were significantly weakened by the plague. So years of fighting with each other and being exhausted from war and being impacted by plague had really weakened them, and that made it very easy for the Arab armies who are not yet Muslim, made it easy for them to capture city after city easily. Also, a lot of these fights were internal uprisings of the Arabs rather than a complete external invasion. So that's also some parts of the history that is being rediscovered again. So when I say better values make you more powerful, make you richer and more powerful, it's not the only factor. There are obviously many other factors, but having the right values has a positive factor, but there could be so many other things that are also involved and they're having their influence as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I wanted to add was we could actually show empirically the values that make societies richer and more powerful and more prosperous. But again, just as Peter pointed out, you have to control for other factors. But these are empirically observable. One book that you could read that could like goes through this is the book Enlightenment Now by Peter Singer. Is really, you could empirically see what methods are working, right? um but also what Hila said is very interesting, because a lot of us think that people pick their beliefs based on what they think is true. So we say like, what, how could we help people find the truth? But that question comes with the assumption that we think people want to find the truth. But people don't pick their beliefs based on what reflects reality the most. People mostly pick their beliefs about what fits them best. So people treat beliefs, rather than an explainer of reality, they treat them as an identity card and a membership card. So they put it on, they see if it fits, if they feel comfortable with it, then they stick with it. Usually, what you're born with is the one that you're most comfortable with, but some people switch. And it's basically like clothes. You put it on, you look in a mirror, you see if it fits or not. So it's an identity card. And then you go to the people who are wearing the same thing, and you see if you're welcome there or not. So it's a membership card. You need to feel like you're part of a community, and you need to feel like this identity fits you. And that's how usually people pick their beliefs. So the challenge here is that if people pick their beliefs based on what fits them well as both of a membership card and an identity card, and it's not based on what matches facts, then, and if we know which beliefs cause the highest amount of prosperity and growth and progress, then if we are trying to spread these correct beliefs by convincing people logically, we're missing most people. So we have to figure out how to market these beliefs rather than only argue these beliefs, right? So arguing these beliefs is going to get us a small percentage of the society that are genuinely looking for beliefs that matches reality. And we're missing the marketing part of it. And I think religions are really good way this is why studying religions is really good, because religions have gone through so much trial and error, and the ones that are working are the ones who have gotten the marketing department very well. And we could see why have they been so successful. One thing you notice is that you need community, and you need rituals, and it seems you need some history, some genesis, and you need a genesis story, you need rituals, and you need community. So just having the right beliefs is not enough. You need these marketing elements to be able to sell these. And this is why nationalism and patriotism, I think, is a very effective way to package these modern effective beliefs, because it has the sense of community, it has rituals, it has its history, your country's history, and the genesis story of your country is basically the story, the legends that you need for this ideology. So it has basically check when it comes to all the things that religion got right when it comes to marketing. Patriotism has that, but it also is flexible to have all the modern values that make a society prosper. It could package that all under a sense of patriotism. And that's why I think that patriotism is the best collective identity that we have right now as a way to unite people towards a certain goal.